What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We continue with our schedule previews for 2021 and also our projected records. The Iowa Hawkeyes are up next. Team that only lost 2 games last year and had an all Big Ten schedule, of course, but it worked out pretty well because they didn't have to play Ohio State, and that was really last season. If you're in the West, really, as long as you avoided Ohio State, you're doing pretty good. They didn't get to play their bowl game against Missouri. I hated to miss that game. I really would have liked to have seen those two go at it, but they did finish 6-2. And here is the schedule for 2021. Before we get into the game-by-game schedule, let's look at who they play outside of the Big Ten West, because we know they're going to play all the teams in their division. They'll play on the road at Iowa State. Of course, that rivalry coming back. Didn't get to see that last year. They'll also play Kent State and Colorado State. So not two pushovers there. Those are not going to be games where Iowa just shows up and wins. Yes, they'll be favored in both of those games by probably double digits, but still, those games could challenge them a little bit. And so that's a decent non-conference schedule. And then when you go to the games they play out of the Big Ten East, they play Indiana at Maryland and Penn State. Pretty tough draw there, but again, they do avoid Ohio State. I don't know really. Rutgers is getting better. Michigan State is a question mark. Those are probably the two teams you want to play out of the East. Maryland maybe is in that category as well. I think Penn State's going to be a lot better this year, and I think Indiana is going to be good again. So when you look at their draw out of the East, it's not perfect, but I think you'll take it just because you don't have to play Ohio State. So they'll start the season off on September 4th against Indiana. Huge game. Huge game. I think there are a couple of Big Ten matchups that first weekend. A big game. So that's going to be one that will really set the tone for both teams. I think both teams are going to be similar. Both teams will be in the top 25 this year to kick off the year. And so that's going to be a big game, really big game. Iowa needs to get that win to get off on the right track. Plus, it's a home game. You don't want to lose at home. Then Iowa State after that, September 11th on the road. Iowa State's going to be very good this year. This is a top 10 team, a legitimate playoff contender. So that'll be a tough one. But, of course, it's a rivalry, and Iowa's done pretty well in this rivalry. We'll see what happens this year. Kent State coming up on September 18th, a home game for Iowa. Not a bad team out of the MAC. Colorado State out of the Mountain West on September 25th. Then on October 2nd, they'll go on the road to play Maryland. Maryland showed some flashes last year. They were kind of up and down. Don't really know for sure what we're going to get from that team in 2021, but playing on the road will make that a pretty tough test. Penn State on October the 9th. That'll be a home game for Iowa, and that'll be a big game as well. I think Penn State's going to be much better this year. When you look at Indiana and Penn State, going to be two tough matchups out of the East, but the good news is they get both of them at home. And what's interesting about this schedule, you go from Indiana to Penn State, they don't play a division game. All of their non-conference games and their games outside of the division against the Big Ten East, those are the first 6 games. You play those 6 games, and then the rest of the year, the last 6 games are all division games. I think that's a bonus. That's a plus, because if you lose, are going to lose, you want to lose outside of the division, because if it comes down to a tiebreaker, you want to have that tiebreaker within the division. So I think that is a good thing for their schedule, but they will open up with Purdue as far as Big Ten West play is concerned. Purdue at home. Then they get a bye week after that. Perfect time for a bye week, right before a tough road game with Wisconsin. Actually, back-to-back road games, Wisconsin and Northwestern. Those will be big games as well, and games that Iowa will have to win probably at least one of those 2 games if they'll have a chance to win the Big Ten West. Then Minnesota on November 13th, Illinois November 20th. They'll close things out with Nebraska on November 26th. That'll be a Friday game, the Friday after Thanksgiving, and I'm glad that they're going to close out the year with that matchup. I really like that rivalry that they've kind of put in place. Last year, which they didn't have a normal year, but they were not going to play that game at the end of the year last season. They played, they played at the same time. They played on that Friday after Thanksgiving, I think, but it wasn't to close out the year. So, and that's interesting, but yeah, they will play this year in the final game of the season, Iowa-Nebraska, and I'm glad that we get that matchup. It's become a pretty good rivalry. I think it really has, and we've seen some great games in the past with that matchup. So that's the schedule for 2021. Now let's first look at the big picture here. When you break down the schedule again, the first 6 games not in the division, the last 6 games in the division. That's interesting. You've got Wisconsin and Northwestern back-to-back road games, but that's the only back-to-back road games that you have. As far as back-to-back tough games, I'm looking at those first two games, Indiana and Iowa State. That's going to be a big test for this Iowa team. Other than that, and the Wisconsin-Northwestern back-to-back on the road, I don't think there's anything too brutal here. So the schedule for them is tough, but no Ohio State. I think that makes it a little bit easier, and it's definitely a schedule I think Iowa can manage and have a chance to win the Big Ten West with. But let's go ahead and project their record, and this is the scale that we use to project the record. If it stays in white, that's a 50-50 game. Less than 10% in red, 10 to 25% in orange, 26 to 40% in yellow, 60 to 74 in purple, 75 to 90 in blue. If it's more than 90%, then it's going to be in the green. And we're going to start with the easier wins. I don't think they have any plus 90% games because I think, again, Kent State and Colorado State are quality teams. They're not going to win those games 70-0, but they should win them, and I think they're close to 90%. But again, this is not a scenario where Iowa's going to be favored by 28 points. They're going to be favored probably by 16, 17 points, something like that. They should be able to win those games. I think Illinois is kind of in that same category. Maybe the spread isn't quite as high, but I do think it's a situation where they're going to be 2 touchdown favorites. They won by 2 touchdowns last year, so I think that's probably what we see in that matchup there. Then we go to the purple, and these are the 60 to 74% games. These are games where I think Iowa's going to be favored by 6, 7, 8 points, somewhere in that range. Not huge favorites, but they're clearly the team that is going to be favored. And with this, I think we get 4 games. We get Maryland, Purdue, Northwestern, and Minnesota. I really think Northwestern is going to drop off from where they were last year. You just look at all the production that they lost. I just think they're going to drop off some. And Maryland is a team I'm not sold on just yet. Purdue and Minnesota both at home. Iowa should have an advantage there. So I think that, again, these are all games that Iowa could lose, but they're going to be favored, I think, in all 4 of these matchups. Then we go to the games where I think they're going to be an underdog, and we've only got one of those, Iowa State. I think they will be an underdog. Iowa State, a top 10 team, like I mentioned, plus the game is on the road. They'll have a chance, and again, that's why it's in yellow and not in orange, but it will be very difficult, and they will be an underdog, I think, in this matchup. And that leaves really 4 games: Indiana, Penn State, Wisconsin, and Nebraska. And those are your 50-50 games that I think could go either way, games that are probably going to make or break the season for the Hawkeyes. Indiana, week 1, very even matchup. I'm looking at these 2 teams and thinking that they're going to be very similar next year. Penn State is a team I think is going to be better, so I think that'll be a tough one as well. Wisconsin, that could be the biggest game of the year in the Big Ten West. Could be the game that decides who wins that division. Obviously, that'll be a big one. And then Nebraska. I know you're going to say, well, Nebraska hasn't been very good. If Northwestern and Purdue are in the purple, Nebraska should be in the purple. But, again, it has kind of become a rivalry. The game seems to always be close. It's late in the year. Nebraska has potential. They've got talent. And if they live up to that potential, they're going to be a pretty good team. So I think that's a game where I'd probably favor Iowa, but the fact that it's a kind of a rivalry late in the year on the road, I think it's close to a 50-50 game. While, again, I would put the Hawkeyes as a 3 or 4 point favorite, that's not going to be enough to where I'm going to put that in the purple. So when you average all this out, and we're just looking at the swing games, which in this scenario, you've only got 3 wins: Kent State, Colorado State, and Illinois. Then we average the rest out. Yellow is going to be 40%, white 50%, purple is 60%. And the projected record for Iowa using those numbers, using this formula, is 8-4. So their projection 8-4, which is actually the same as Wisconsin. And again, this is a conservative approach. This is not an official prediction or anything like that. But if that does turn out to be true, both teams go 8-4. Let's say both teams lose their non-conference games. So let's say Iowa loses to Iowa State, Wisconsin loses to Notre Dame. Both teams have 3 losses in the Big Ten, right? Which I think is reasonable. It's going to come down to that head-to-head. Like I said, Iowa-Wisconsin, huge game on October 30th, a game that could determine that division. Do you agree or disagree with this projection? Do you think they'll be better or worse? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.